Morning, everybody. This is my first board report, so what I'm going to do is share some of the highlights you already saw in the June data report. Going to give you some new data that kind of lets you know how we're progressing at this point and some of the things that I'm learning along the way as well. And I'll have a little narrative here and there about some of the pictures you're going to see because I would like to share some of the excitement we've got going in the building with teachers, staff, and students especially. So I'll just kind of go through that. Down here, we have Stephanie Becerra and her mother, where Danielle and Scott had an awesome, incredible Bring Your Parents to PE Day, and it was a huge hit. So that was one of the highlights of the fall this year so far. For me, especially working with Julie Adams and having her come and speak with us and engage our brains and thinking about how we do things in the classroom was an absolutely incredible day. So thank you for bringing her here. That's Mrs. Kaltenbach and myself with Julie right there. Down here, you see a lot of this blue. It's a bench actually, and the students with Miss Wolarek are creating buddy benches. If you don't know what a buddy bench is, recess for every child is not always fun. There are some kids that absolutely love recess. There are some kids that actually just are even fearful of recess at times. So these buddy benches, they are creating these benches. They're actually from the old music room, and the kids decided to design and color and brighten them up. And with Miss Willerek leading the way, she designed a Leader in Me program to do this. And the kids just took the lead from there, and they've designed every piece of artwork on here. So if you saw them today, actually, they're super colorful and they're really vibrant and the kids are enjoying them. They should be outside in a couple of weeks. The idea is if you're feeling a little lonely at lunch and recess, you go sit on the buddy bench, and then another friend comes over because they recognize that you need a buddy, and then they pick you up from there, and you go enjoy your day. So it's a really great thing. You should look it up online. The kids are doing a great job with her. And then over here, we've got Emily, Eva, Nolan, and Ren, and they are showing off all the sentence types that they've been learning in Miss Moline's classroom. Moving on from here, just wanted to share with you our SIP goals this year. I was really fortunate to be able to work with the team in the summer, and that was a phenomenal way of working on a consistent plan towards something better for our school. And it was really nice to be able to get together for several days in a row and hours to work on something rather than in these segmented 30-minute, 35, 40-minute moments. So that was really helpful. I hope we do that again this year. So we had three goals that we were tasked to create. We had a culture goal, academic goal, and systems goal. Our culture goal, I put that at the top because quite frankly, that is one of the ones that drives our building because we are working a great deal on culture in our building and obviously academics and system as well. But culture is something that is, I guess, very near and dear to my heart. And I know probably PJ's laughing right now because that is a feeling statement, not a statement on principle, but it is something that is very important because we got all of that data from our HumanX survey, and it was extremely important for our building. If you've ever been in our building, you'll understand that as well. So for the culture goal, it's by the end of 2018-19 school year, 70% of the faculty and staff at Monroe Center will be highly engaged and highly satisfied with their current position. The academic goal by the end of 2018-19 school year, 65% of Monroe Center students will meet their individual goals in STAR and math pre and post assessments. And our systems goal was by the end of 2018-19 school year, 100% of Monroe Center students who enroll or withdraw from Monroe Center after the first day of school will complete the onboarding and offboarding process. That's an interesting one because we really didn't have an onboarding and offboarding process, which is one of the reasons we felt like that needed to be a systems goal in place because it is very difficult to just have a new student start and throw them in a classroom, not to mention it's difficult for a teacher and getting everything prepared, as well as the student being thrown into a situation of here, you're in a Leader in Me school, here, you have all these things to do, and it is extremely challenging. So we are hoping to eliminate some of those challenges by working on that systems goal this year as well. And I will share some more information about these throughout the presentation. The interesting thing about this slide right now, the reason I'm sharing this with you is obviously you know our mission because the development of that process involved you, but it occurred to me after being on the leadership team for the last few years and then working through our culture goal this year that many people in our building really didn't necessarily know what the mission statement meant. It's not that they couldn't recite it or they didn't know it or couldn't memorize it, but it's just like we teach our kids in our classroom that literally memorizing something or the rote memory doesn't do us a lot of good if we don't understand what it means. So, in part of our culture goal, we had some refreshers built up in our steps to achieve these goals. And so, one of the things we wanted to talk about within that is collective efficacy, what our mission, how decisions are made in our building and in our district, and everything we talk about and all the decisions we make need to tie into our mission statement. So what we did, you'll notice these are actually 5 canvases. We did an activity in our family meeting with the teachers, and they started the whole artwork off where we spoke about what each one of these concepts meant to us and how that relates to what we do with children and each other. And then we took it a step further, and then our paras did the same activity with these same boards. And then we have a very artistic para who decorated them up for us. But the bottom line is, after we did this, then we actually put them up. So every single time we're thinking about why a decision was made, maybe why I got a yes, maybe why I got a no, if we can relate all of the things that we need to do for students directly to these components, then it's a win-win situation for everybody. But the problem is, if you don't understand these components, then you're asking questions and doing things that don't relate anything to that mission. So that was super important to us to understand that as a building. And it actually dominoed into a situation where several teachers were like, if we felt it was that important to do that in our staff or a family meeting, then it was even just as, if not more important, to share this with their students. So we had several teachers that went back into their classrooms and said, hey, we want to show you something and we want to tell you what this is about. So you know why we are asking you to do things while you're learning, this is what we want for you. And that was a huge, incredible moment for me as a new principal and for me to work with some teachers that actually felt it was important enough to share these pieces with students because they need to know what we want for them. And that could be the most important part of this. As I mentioned in the previous slide, a lot of that information came from the HumanX survey that we took at I want to say April or towards the end of the year last year. And it was incredible the data that they brought back to us so we could kind of look at really where we were at. And so that you see the arrows are at the 5 areas that we rated the lowest at Monroe Center. And those are all areas that we use to develop our culture goal or our culture SIP plan. So one of the things obviously that we work on a lot are relationships, and that is not just relationships with students. We are finding out with everything in the leader and me and how all of that, if we live it within ourselves and we have the relationships we need to have with each other, those are bigger indicators to students of how people and adults should be acting, and then we're modeling for them. So we work on the relationships, um, definitely on the recognition, the training development. We've been working on PD plans and stuff like that, and obviously the mission conscious was another area that we worked on as well. This is the grid that we based a lot of our culture SIP creation off of, and also the bar graph that you just saw in the prior slide. But looking at this, we really want to move as many people as we can to the upper right-hand corner because we want everybody to be satisfied and they engaged in what they're doing and inspired by what they're doing. And when we are in that place ourselves, then we are also modeling for our students how to be engaged in the work that they're doing and be passionate about what they're doing. So some of the things that we're doing to keep that at the forefront is we're talking about this in every staff or family meeting that we have. We have conversations about collective efficacy. And usually when I say that word, a lot of people look at me and kind of wonder what that is. And in our family meeting, when we just had at the very beginning of the year to start the year off, many people didn't know what that meant. And so it's extremely important that they do because it is the number one factor that influences student achievement, which is really actually hard to believe. But when you look at the research, it is amazing what knowing that if you have a shared belief that your collective work together is going to positively influence student outcomes, then it does. And that doesn't just mean with a certain grouping of students. It means even with the disengaged, the disadvantaged. It's amazing to think about it that way, but that's powerful. So we are working on the Maslow's before the Blooms with adults and students in the building, which may sound a little odd because normally we're always working on students, but unfortunately we don't work on the adults and the adults don't live that as well. Students see everything. They understand a lot more than we're aware of. So we have to make sure that we also are living it within ourselves. We also, it ties in really well with the Leader in Me, the PBIS, and the social emotional learning standards. And we are doing a lot of PD within our building, not just for teachers, but for paras as well. And we are really making a huge effort. So when we have family meetings, I know logistically we have them, the teachers and we have the paras separate because we have to make sure we have supervision for students and so forth. But what we are doing is every time I communicate something to teachers, I communicate that same agenda to paras and I will add to it. If I add to the agenda for paras, then I share that with teachers. The communication is key in making sure this is successful. And so we are having a lot of conversations. We are sharing the same information, and we are definitely making sure that everybody feels part of the family over there at Monroe Center. This one you can look at and pretty much see exactly what I'm going to tell you. It has some of the information on the full day teacher absences and half day teacher absences from last year. And we have the current data on this year so far. We're actually a little under, which I'm happy about as far as absences so far. So last year we were in September about 35. This year we're just like 31, and so we are a little under as well on half day absences. So I'm hoping that it continues to go on that trend. So we have our teachers with us more often as opposed to having to worry about having subs in the classroom. Not that they're not doing a great job, but I hope that continues that route. This is just a brief representation of attendance that Sarah had shared in the June data report that you had seen. Looks like our attendance for the year that gets reported at the end of the year on the Illinois school report card, it actually looks very consistent over the past years. There's a couple of higher years, but right around 96%. And then she had the comparison as well with Byron, Oregon, and Winnebago. And this is, you've heard a lot about the Mayan digital reading platform. I am in love with it, and it's been one of those things since we started with the program that I've absolutely completely been in love with how they have the digital aspects and the interactive tools that the students can work with. And everything we've done with Mayan so far has been completely student choice, teacher choice, and that has been really successful. I think at this point, looking at the numbers that we have right now, we're a little low out of the gate so far this year. So I'm hoping that that increases. I'm trying to figure out ways that I can leverage using Mayan in the classroom. I'm also trying to think of ways that we can maybe successfully have some leverage on Mayan at home, maybe having some contests, stuff like that. And I know we had talked about last year as well, looking at the Lexile levels hopefully increasing. And I wonder, I don't know at this point, how much of that will grow this year, actually having the program from the very start of the year all the way through and having the kids having easier access through the Chromebooks and everybody having one in their hand, how much of a difference that's going to make. So I'm curious to track that data to see what's going to happen now that the kids have Chromebooks in every single classroom and every single hand. So I'm looking forward to seeing that grow. This you saw as well last year in Sarah's data report in June, and she did a fabulous job tracking the behavior, not just the behavior, but the low SES, the IEP students, absenteeism, and other relationships that might follow for students that are having behavior referrals. So I'm hoping to do the same this year, and it's been kind of an interesting way to look at the referrals when you're looking at those broken down categories of subgroups. So I'm curious to see how that's going to contribute to what we see this year. And this is the current year's data with regards to referrals in the building so far. And we are just getting started with the year, so I'm hoping that things, as we are continuing on with Leader in Me, I'm hoping that we actually see less than we saw last year overall. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that and PBIS and Leader in Me contribute to the referrals this year. Moving on to the slows that we had last year, we did all in or building wide slow with star reading and star math, and we met both of our slows last year at Monroe Center, so I'm super proud of everybody for working hard to do so. This is some more information from the data report in June, sharing the Monroe Center reading SGP from the last 2 years. Then I'm also sharing the Monroe Center math SGP records per teacher. And I believe the reason it was separated out that way is last year our SIP was a math SIP. This year it is as well. So I'm wondering by looking at the data, because you can see that over the last 2 years, the growth on the math end has been very obvious. I'm hoping that maybe by looking at this as well, when our SIP team gets together, it's possible that we should be looking into a reading SIP goal next year as well. So we will determine that as a team, but just looking at this, it just makes me wonder about that as well. Also, I put the definition of an SGP in the upper right hand corner because a ton of people, myself included, have multiple times confused the definition and what it means. So I thought I would put that there in case anybody was wondering or had questions or concerns about that as well. Here's a good picture of our fall benchmarking this year. And as you can see, we've got third grade, there was 33% of the students that tested at or above the current benchmark. Fourth grade, 45%, and fifth grade, 42%. So we will benchmark again in December, and we actually have another round of progress monitoring coming up. So I'll be curious to look at that to see how we've done as compared to the fall benchmarking and where we've grown. So I'm looking forward to that. On this slide, I also put the definition of a scaled score, so you're aware of that as well, and how that score is useful for comparing data across time period and across grade levels. So for the same student, of course. And then that way you have that definition as well. This is another report that I like to look at. Not everybody likes this report, but sometimes at a glance, it's a nice way to be able to see where the students that are in fifth grade now, these are the same students in fourth grade when they were in fourth grade, and then these are the same fifth graders when they were in third grade. And I like to look at it at times because when you're benchmarking and you can see as the red gets smaller over time, then one would think that we're closing some gaps. It depends. There's a lot more information in between those sets of data, but that's some of the things that I think are interesting to look at. So then I have questions with regards to fourth grade as well. I noticed that the student count when these kiddos were in second grade, now we're almost 25 kids more in fourth grade. I do believe right here when the third graders were in first grade, this might have to do with the fact that there were only 63 kids maybe that took the star reading. They might have taken early literacy at that point as well. So that one's questionable at that point. But the rest is very interesting to watch as you see. Like I'm thrilled that it looks like the green is getting larger here for the at or above. A little concerned about those kids that are at level one as compared to second grade, but I'm wondering what factors play into that. So this is just an interesting visual for that to understand a little bit how these students, how they're growing from when they were in second grade and first grade and so forth. Think one of the things that we're most excited about in the building, and have been since the beginning of the year, is again the leader in me and how that process is unfolding in our building. And it's nice because every single building does it differently, and that is exactly how it's designed. So that's wonderful. This year, at the beginning of the year, one of the best things that we did is we started off with the first 8 days, which is not something we've ever done before because we have had teachers come in the building, and day two, they're immediately working on curriculum and math and everything, which you would think naturally should be the first thing that they do. However, if we're not establishing the routines, having the kids learn what the habits are, and focusing on the importance of that and creating the foundation, we can move forward all we want. But if the kids aren't understanding how this process works and they're not learning and living the habits, we're really kind of defeating the purpose of understanding what this is about. It's really a lifestyle. It's not just something that you study and learn. It's actually how you live. So we started off with the first 8 days. There has been conversation, and some of the teachers thought that having full days with the habit in mind was a little bit much. So we're talking about doing half days with it next year. So there's conversation there. Our Lighthouse team, I love that we have both paras and teachers on that team. I'd like for that to expand as well. And we're starting with leadership ambassadors. We actually have the applications process started, so kids are applying for jobs in the building, in the class, and in the other areas of leadership roles that they would have in the building, which is great. And then the school, obviously, if you've been in the building, has had some facelift areas that we've enhanced, which we're really enjoying. And a lot of that was created by student choice as well. We let them determine what quotes are going to be said and what things are going to be up in the building. There's been a few surprises along the way, but we are really enjoying focusing on the leader and me, and people are learning about how that does affect your personal, professional, and academic life. So it's students, teachers, staff. We're all learning together, and that's it's incredible. And I thought since we started with a few pictures, it'd be perfect to share with you um, what things are going really well by a few pictures. So some of the things that have been exciting this year, uh, we had Representative Tom Demmer come and do principal for a day, which was incredible. I got to talk politics with him, and that was great for me, and the kids enjoyed it as well. We've had kids doing some STEM projects this year. We've had visits to the farm. We've had some actual fun, interactive staff slash family meetings, which has been great. We've been having kids at Lowell Park for um, basically appreciation, environment appreciation. And then we actually, one of the really cool things, the kids have these little badges that they're holding in their hands. They're clever badges, they're QR codes, and they sign on to the Chromebooks this way, and they can sign in with one scan, and they're in everything, and that has been a game changer for the kids. And then last but not least, I'll leave you with this. I love the saying, do what is right, not what is easy. And the reason we love that, if you walk into Monroe Center on the left-hand wall, we've done a little facelift there. The good thing about Monroe Center that we're really enjoying is we also have a huge appreciation for the history of our building and where we're at and what we're doing and how we're changing. So we had the old pictures that were in all different frames, and some of the frames were really um, worn. So we had them all reframed and matted, and we have them on the entryway, and it has the old plans of the building and the articles and everything like that. And we're really proud of that area as well. So if you guys have any questions, I appreciate that, and thank you very much. And you guys have a great evening.